The massive research vessel hung silently in space, its dark hull barely visible against the backdrop of stars. Inside, Dr. Vex stood before the grand observation window, his four eyes fixed on the blue planet below. Earth, as its inhabitants called it, had been under their study for the past 50 years. "Display the latest analysis," he commanded, his gray skin reflecting the soft glow of holographic screens that appeared around him. The data streams showed everything about Earth, its atmospheric composition, population centers, and most importantly, its technological progress. Behind him, the research team worked quietly at their stations. They belonged to one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, tasked with studying and categorizing emerging species. Humans, according to their careful calculations, were precisely 247 years behind the galactic standard. "Primitive, but fascinating," Dr. Vex muttered, reaching out to touch one of the floating displays. "Their average lifespan is barely a century, yet they persist in trying to understand the universe." He found it almost admirable, in a simple sort of way. The ship's captain, a tall figure named Dex, approached with measured steps. "The Council wants an update on the observation mission," he said, his voice carrying the formal tone of their species. "They're growing impatient with the passive approach." Dr. Vex turned away from the window, his secondary eyes still tracking the movement on the screens while his primary pair focused on the captain. 50 years of observation has taught us much, but there's still so much we don't understand about them. Perhaps, Dex suggested, it's time for a more direct approach. The words hung in the air between them. Direct contact with primitive species was rarely approved, but there were exceptions. Species that showed potential, yet needed guidance, could be approached under strict protocols. Dr. Vex pulled up another display, this one showing human conflicts throughout history. "They're violent," he noted, "but not mindlessly so. They fight, yet they also create art. They destroy, yet they also heal. Most curious. Their technology is primitive enough that we could easily control any interaction," Dex pointed out. "Our shields are beyond their comprehension, and our weapons are centuries ahead of their most advanced systems." The research leader walked to another station, where a junior scientist was analyzing human communication patterns. The screen showed television broadcasts, radio signals, and internet traffic, a chaos of information that never seemed to cease. "Look at this," Dr. Vex said, pointing to a particular data stream. "They spend significant resources on entertainment, creating fictional scenarios of alien contact." He paused, all four eyes blinking in sequence. "Most species we study focus purely on survival and technological advancement. But humans, they dream." "All the more reason to initiate contact," Dex pressed. "The Council believes we've gathered enough data. They want results, not more observations." Dr. Vex stood silent for a long moment, his mind processing decades of research. Humans were physically weak compared to many species, their lives were short, and their technology was basic. Yet something about them had always fascinated him. They had a quality his people had never quite understood, an unpredictability that defied their careful calculations. Finally, he made his decision. "Prepare a first contact protocol," he ordered. "But remember our primary directive. We are researchers, not conquerors. We'll approach with caution and minimal show of force." "And if they resist?" Dex asked. Dr. Vex turned back to the window, watching the blue planet spin slowly below them. "They won't," he said confidently. "Our technology is too advanced, our ships too powerful. What could they possibly do against a civilization that has mastered interstellar travel?" As the crew began preparations for first contact, none of them noticed a small anomaly in their sensor readings. Their advanced stealth systems, designed to hide them from primitive scanning technology, were causing tiny fluctuations in Earth's magnetic field. It was a small detail, one their sophisticated computers dismissed as insignificant. But sometimes, the smallest details can change everything. Captain Jack Miller was having a normal day aboard the International Space Station when his coffee mug started floating in an unusual way. At first, he thought nothing of it. Everything floated in space after all. But after 15 years as an astronaut, he had learned to trust his instincts. "Hey Tom," he called to his fellow astronaut, who was checking the station's solar panels. "Come look at this." Tom pushed off from his workstation and glided across the module. "What's up, Jack?" "Watch my coffee." Jack released his mug again, and they both observed as the liquid inside formed strange patterns, different from the normal surface tension behavior they were used to seeing in space. "That's weird," Tom said, frowning. "Some kind of magnetic disturbance." Jack was already moving to the science station, his fingers flying over the keyboard as he pulled up the magnetic field readings. After decades of space travel, humans had gotten very good at reading the subtle signs of space weather and magnetic fluctuations. "Look at this pattern," he said, pointing to the screen. "It's too regular to be natural. And it's moving against the Earth's normal magnetic field lines." Tom leaned in closer. "Could be a solar flare." "No," Jack shook his head. "I've never seen anything like this. It's almost like—" He paused, his eyes widening. "It's almost like something's trying to hide itself." He quickly switched to a different program, one designed to track space debris. The screen showed nothing unusual, but the magnetic disturbance was clearly there, moving in a precise pattern that suggested intelligence rather than natural phenomena. "Get me Houston," Jack ordered, his voice calm but urgent. Years of training had taught him to stay cool under pressure, and wake up the rest of the crew. As Tom moved to the communication station, Jack continued analyzing the data. He'd spent years studying advanced propulsion theories, and something about these readings reminded him of theoretical stealth technology papers he reviewed. "Houston, this is ISS," Tom spoke into the radio. "We have an anomaly up here that Captain Miller needs to report." Static answered them. "Houston, do you copy?" Tom tried again. "This is ISS reporting an anomaly." More static. Jack felt a chill run down his spine. "Try the backup frequencies, all of them." For the next 5 minutes, they attempted to contact Earth on every available channel. Nothing worked. It was as if something was blocking their communications, all of them at once. "Get everyone to the observation module," Jack ordered. "Now." The 6-person crew gathered quickly, their faces showing concern but remaining professional. Through the station's large windows, Earth looked peaceful below them, its blue surface partially hidden by white clouds. "What we're about to see might change everything," Jack said, checking his watch. "Based on the magnetic disturbance pattern, something should pass through this sector in about 30 seconds. They waited in tense silence. At first, nothing seemed different. Then Mary, their youngest crew member, gasped. "The stars," she whispered. "They're moving wrong." They all saw it then. A patch of space where the stars seemed to bend slightly, as if they were looking through water. It was subtle. Anyone who wasn't specifically watching for it would have missed it entirely. "That's a cloaking device," Jack said quietly. "Has to be. And it's big, bigger than anything we've ever built." "Aliens?" Tom asked, his voice steady despite the implications of what they were seeing. "Yes," Jack replied, "and they don't know we can see them." He turned to his crew, his expression serious but determined. "Listen carefully. Our communications are being jammed, but we still have our emergency beacon. It was designed to be virtually unhackable, using technology so old and simple that modern interference shouldn't affect it." "The Morse code transmitter?" Mary asked. Jack nodded. "Exactly. We're going to send one message, as powerful and clear as we can make it. After that, well, after that, we'll probably have company." "What's the message?" Tom asked. "Just 3 words," Jack replied, moving to the emergency station. "They are here." Dr. Vex stood at his command post, watching with satisfaction as the fleet moved into position around Earth. The humans' primitive satellites had already detected them, a fact that surprised him slightly, but it hardly mattered now. Their plan was simple and foolproof. "Begin the electromagnetic pulse sequence," he ordered. "Disable their electronic capabilities." The weapons officer pressed the activation sequence, and waves of energy rippled out from the alien ships. On the viewing screens, they watched as the pulse spread across the planet's surface. According to their calculations, every unshielded electronic device on Earth should have been rendered useless. "Curious," the weapons officer said, frowning at his displays. "I'm still detecting significant electronic activity on the surface." Dr. Vex moved closer to the screens. "Impossible. Their technology isn't advanced enough to withstand our EMP weapons." But the evidence was clear. While some systems had gone dark, many others remained operational. Military bases, government facilities, and even some civilian infrastructure continued to function. On Earth, inside a hardened military command center, General James Thompson watched the alien ships through reinforced windows. Decades of preparing for both nuclear war and solar storms had led humans to develop impressive electromagnetic shielding technology. "Looks like those tin cans in the sky just tried to knock out our electronics," he said, looking at the bank of still-functioning computers around him. "Shame they didn't know about our Cold War preparations." His aide handed him a report. "Sir, backup systems are online. Hardened communications are functioning. 80% of military installations report minimal impact from the alien EMP." The general smiled. "Send word to all commands. Initiate Protocol Omega." Across the globe, military bases that appeared dark and dead suddenly sprang to life. Underground hangars opened, revealing aircraft that had been specially shielded. Missile silos that seemed inactive powered up their backup systems. Submarines deep in the oceans, naturally protected from the EMP, maintained their silent vigil. Back on the alien command ship, Dr. Vex was growing frustrated. How are they still operating? Scan their facilities. The scan revealed something that shocked the alien researchers. Layers of metal shielding, backup systems, and redundant power supplies protected key human installations. It was primitive technology by their standards, but it was effective. "They've been preparing for something like this," Dex said, his voice carrying a note of concern. "These defenses, they're old, decades old." Dr. Vex stared at the readings. "But why?" "They had no knowledge of us." "No," Dex replied slowly. "They were preparing for their own weapons. They built these defenses to survive attacks from themselves." Before Dr. Vex could respond, alarms blared across the command center. On their screens, they watched as military installations across Earth launched a coordinated response. Fighters rose from hidden bases, missiles emerged from concealed silos, and gun batteries appeared from camouflaged positions. "Impossible," Dr. Vex whispered. "Their technology is too primitive to threaten us." But as they watched, the humans did something unexpected. Instead of firing directly at the alien ships, they launched a massive barrage of missiles high into the atmosphere. The missiles detonated, creating a cloud of debris and electromagnetic interference that disrupted the aliens' sensitive scanning equipment. "They're using their own electromagnetic pulses against us," the weapons officer reported, his voice showing clear distress. "Our sensors can't penetrate their countermeasures." Dr. Vex watched as his carefully planned first contact scenario crumbled. The humans weren't behaving like a primitive species should. They were fighting back with surprising effectiveness, using their own limitations as advantages. "Send in the ground forces," he ordered, his 4 eyes narrowing. "Let's see how they handle direct confrontation." But as the order went out, he couldn't shake a growing feeling of unease. Something told him that the humans had more surprises in store. The alien ground forces learned their first lesson about humans in the Amazon rainforest. Their landing ships touched down in what seemed like an empty clearing, chosen specifically to avoid human detection. Within hours, half their patrol units had gone silent. "What do you mean, you can't find them?" Dr. Vex demanded, staring at the holographic map showing his missing troops. The field commander's image flickered as he reported. "The humans, They're not fighting like our simulations predicted. They're using the environment against us. They've set traps, sir. Simple ones. Pits covered with leaves. Snares made from vines. Primitive, but effective. They're using sticks and stones against our advanced armor. Dr. Vex couldn't hide his disbelief. No, sir. They're using sticks and stones to lead us into kill zones. Then they hit us with their actual weapons. The commander paused. We've lost 30% of our forward units. In another part of the world, a group of alien soldiers found themselves surrounded in an urban environment. Their advanced sensors were overwhelmed by the chaos of city infrastructure. Subway tunnels, sewers, and maintenance passages created a maze that humans navigated with ease. These buildings, one alien scout reported, they're not just structures. The humans have prepared them. Every window could hide a shooter. Every doorway could be trapped. We're fighting shadows. Back on the command ship, Dr. Vex called an emergency meeting with his research team. The holographic displays showed battle reports from around the globe. Our calculations were wrong, he admitted, reviewing the mounting losses. We based our combat predictions on their official military doctrine, but they're not following it. They're adapting, Dex observed. Each time we counter one of their tactics, they switch to something new. They're learning from every engagement. A junior researcher spoke up, her analysis adding to their concern. Sir, I've been studying their historical records. Humans have spent their entire history fighting themselves. They've developed thousands of different ways to wage war. They're not using one strategy. They're using all of them. On Earth, in an underground command center, General Thompson watched the alien forces struggle against human guerrilla tactics. His screen showed updates from around the world. Russian tanks emerging from hidden bunkers to ambush alien patrols. British submarines tracking alien ships using old sonar techniques. Indian military units disappearing into crowded cities only to strike from unexpected directions. Sir, his aide reported, the civilian resistance is growing. People are sharing information online about alien weapon vulnerabilities. Engineers are already developing countermeasures based on captured technology. The general nodded. That's the thing about humans. You give us a problem. We'll find 1,000 ways to solve it. He pointed to a map showing alien landing zones. Have our units pull back from these areas. Pull back, sir. Yes. Let them think they're winning. Let them get comfortable. Then we'll show them why you don't invade a species that invented the concept of the false retreat. Meanwhile, in research facilities across the globe, human scientists were working around the clock, studying every piece of alien technology they could salvage. They didn't need to understand how it worked. They just needed to figure out how to break it. Their shield technology, one physicist explained to her team, it's too perfect. And that's their weakness. It's designed to stop everything. But nothing in nature stops everything. There's always a frequency that gets through, always a weak point. We just need to find it. Dr. Vex, watching another battle group report heavy losses, was beginning to understand their fundamental mistake. They had classified humans as primitive because they lacked advanced technology. But they had failed to recognize that this same limitation had forced humans to become masters of using whatever tools they had available. They're not primitive, he realized, too late. They're survivors, and we just gave them access to our technology. Commander Anna West stood in front of a bank of computers in the underground research facility, watching as test after test failed to penetrate the alien shields. But with each failure, she smiled a little wider. Run it again, she ordered her team. But this time, let's do something different. Instead of trying to break through their shields, let's make them break themselves. The research team had been studying captured alien technology for weeks. They had noticed something interesting. The alien shields adapted perfectly to any single type of attack, but they always adapted in the same way. It's like they've never heard of chaos theory, one of the scientists said, adjusting his equipment. Their systems are too perfect, too predictable. Anna nodded. That's because they've never needed to be unpredictable. Until now. She turned to her team. Load up the random frequency generator. All of them. At once. In space, Dr. Vex was reviewing the latest battle reports when the alarm started blaring. On his screens, he watched as a small human facility began broadcasting waves of energy in completely random patterns. What are they doing? He wondered aloud. Their attacks aren't following any logical sequence. The humans had created a system that changed frequencies millions of times per second, each change completely random. The alien shields, designed to adapt to specific threats, couldn't keep up with the chaos. "Sir," one of his officers called out, "Shield failure on ground units 7 and 9. And they're all failing." The alien shields, trying to adapt to each new frequency, were burning out their power cores. They couldn't handle the completely random nature of the attacks. It was like trying to build a wall against water. The humans had found a way to flow through every crack. Back on Earth, Anna's discovery spread quickly. Military units began modifying their weapons with random frequency generators. Civilian tech companies started mass-producing the devices. Even old radio equipment was repurposed to create the chaotic signals that confused alien technology. "It's beautiful," Anna said, watching the data streams. "We're not beating their technology. We're using their own perfectionism against them. They built their systems to handle everything they could think of, but they never thought about the things they couldn't think of." General Thompson received the report about the breakthrough with his usual calm demeanor. "So you're telling me we can beat their billion-dollar shields with random noise?" "Yes, sir," his aide replied. "Commander West's team figured out that their shields are too perfect. They try to stop everything, but they can only adapt to patterns they recognize. Random chaos overloads them." The general laughed. "Of course it does. You know what the aliens don't understand about humans. We're really good at chaos. We thrive in it." Across the globe, human forces began implementing the new strategy. Radio stations were converted to broadcast shield-breaking frequencies. Old radar installations were reprogrammed to emit random signals. Even civilian electronics were modified to contribute to the electronic chaos. On the alien command ship, Dr. Vex watched in growing horror as his forces' supposedly impenetrable defenses crumbled before what essentially amounted to technological noise. "How?" he demanded. "How are they doing this with such primitive technology?" "Sir," Dex reported, his voice tense, "I think I understand now. We built our technology to be perfect, to follow rules. But humans, they've spent their entire history breaking rules, finding ways around problems they couldn't solve directly." Dr. Vex stared at the screens showing more and more shield failures. "Send the order to all units," he said finally. "Fall back to defensive positions. We need to rethink everything we thought we knew about humans." But it was too late. The humans had found their weakness, and they were already preparing for something bigger. The tide of the war was about to turn, and it would turn on the most human of qualities: the ability to embrace chaos and make it their own. The world's leaders gathered virtually for what would be the most important meeting in human history. On screens across the globe, military commanders, scientists, and government officials shared a single purpose: launching humanity's counterattack. General Thompson stood before his screen, addressing the gathered leaders. "Thanks to Commander West's discovery, we now know how to disable their shields. But that's not enough. We need to take the fight to them. The aliens have a weakness bigger than their shields," Anna West explained, joining the briefing. "They think in straight lines. They expect everything to follow rules. So let's show them what happens when we break all the rules at once." The plan they developed was unlike anything in military history. It didn't rely on overwhelming force or superior technology. Instead, it would use humanity's greatest strength: unpredictability. In orbit, Dr. Vex noticed something strange. Human communications, which his ships had been monitoring, suddenly went quiet. Not silent. There was still activity, but it made no sense. "Sir," His communications officer reported. The humans are. They're broadcasting cooking recipes, and sports scores, and something called cat videos. It's a deception, Dex said confidently. They're hiding their real communications. No, Dr. Vex replied slowly, understanding dawning. They're creating noise. They're hiding everything by hiding nothing. Across Earth, every radio station, TV channel, and satellite uplink began broadcasting random data. The alien monitoring systems, designed to find and decode important military communications, were overwhelmed by the sheer volume of meaningless information. Behind this wall of electronic chaos, humanity's real movements went undetected. Submarines surfaced in unexpected locations, launching missiles not at the alien ships, but into seemingly empty space. The missiles detonated, creating clouds of metallic debris that reflected and scattered the aliens' sensor beams. Old weather balloons, modified with simple electronic jammers, were released by the thousands. They rose into the upper atmosphere, each broadcasting random frequencies that disrupted alien communications. They're everywhere and nowhere, an alien tactical officer reported, frustration clear in his voice. Our sensors can't tell what's a threat and what's just noise. Ground forces around the world began their attack. But instead of engaging directly, they used tactics that made no sense to the aliens. Military units would appear, fire a few shots, and disappear into tunnels or buildings. Civilian vehicles, modified with shield-breaking technology, drove in seemingly random patterns through cities. Sir, Dex called out, genuine alarm in his voice. Human aircraft are approaching. How many? Dr. Vex demanded. I can't tell. Their electronic signatures keep changing. Each one looks like a different type of craft every few seconds. The humans had discovered that the aliens' targeting systems relied on identifying specific types of threats, so they'd modified their aircraft to rapidly switch electronic signatures, appearing as fighters one moment and civilian aircraft the next. In the command center on Earth, General Thompson watched the chaos unfold with satisfaction. Status report. Alien fleet is in disarray. Sir, his aide reported. Their formations are breaking down. They can't maintain proper combat positions because they can't trust their sensors. Their whole society is built on order and rules, Anna added, studying the battlefield data. We're not just disrupting their technology. We're disrupting their entire way of thinking. On the alien command ship, Dr. Vex watched as his carefully organized fleet fell into confusion. Ships were firing at phantom targets, communications were breaking down, and coordinated defense was becoming impossible. Perhaps, he said quietly, we should have spent more time studying their art of war instead of just their technology. He turned to Dex. Send the signal. All ships, prepare for emergency temporal jump. We need to retreat and reassess. But as he gave the order, he noticed something else. The humans weren't pursuing their advantage to destroy his forces. They were simply forcing them to leave. They could have done more damage, he realized. They're not just showing us they can fight. They're showing us they can choose not to. 3 months after the failed invasion, the Galactic Council chamber buzzed with unusual activity. For the first time in its long history, representatives from Earth had been invited to attend. Dr. Vex stood at the speaking platform, giving his final report on the human study mission. We made a fundamental error, he admitted to the assembled council members. We measured humanity's advancement solely by their technology. In doing so, we missed something far more important, their potential. The chamber's massive screens showed scenes from the conflict, human forces using simple technology in innovative ways, civilian scientists reverse engineering alien devices, and communities working together to resist the invasion. The humans didn't just defeat our advanced technology, Dr. Vex continued. They changed our understanding of intelligence itself. They showed us that true advancement isn't just about building better machines. It's about thinking in ways we never imagined possible. In the audience, General Thompson and Commander West sat with Earth's diplomatic team. They listened as Dr. Vex described how humans had turned their perceived weaknesses into strengths. Their short lifespans, Dr. Vex explained, which we saw as a limitation, drive them to accomplish more in decades than we do in centuries. Their constant conflicts, which we viewed as primitive, taught them to adapt and innovate in ways our peaceful civilization never needed to learn. The council members murmured among themselves, many seeing humans in a new light. On the screens, footage showed Earth's cities rebuilding, but with a difference. Human engineers were already incorporating salvaged alien technology into their infrastructure, adapting it in ways its original designers never intended. But perhaps most importantly, Dr. Vex said, his 4 eyes focused on the human delegation, they showed us mercy. When they had the capability to destroy our forces, they chose instead to simply drive us away. They proved themselves not just capable warriors, but wise ones. General Thompson smiled slightly. Took them long enough to figure that out, he whispered to Anna. The head of the Galactic Council, a tall being with crystalline features, rose to speak. Based on Dr. Vex's report and our own observations, this council proposes a new category for humanity. Not as subjects to be studied or primitives to be uplifted, but as equals to be welcomed into the galactic community. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some council members objected, pointing to humanity's relative technological backwardness. Others supported the proposal, impressed by human ingenuity and adaptability. Commander West stood up, waiting to be recognized. The council chamber fell silent as she spoke. "You've all been asking the wrong question," she said clearly. "You keep wondering if we're advanced enough to join you. Instead, you should be asking yourselves if you're ready for the changes we'll bring to your community." She gestured to the screens. "Look at what we've already done with the small amount of alien technology we captured. Imagine what we could do as full partners, combining your knowledge with our creativity. Yes, we're chaotic. Yes, we break rules. But that's exactly why you need us." The council chamber was quiet for a long moment. Then the crystalline council head spoke again. "Perhaps that is precisely why the galaxy needs humanity. To show us new ways of thinking, new ways of solving problems." Dr. Vex stepped forward one last time. "I began this mission believing I would study a primitive species. Instead, I learned that advancement comes in many forms. Humans may not have the most sophisticated technology, but they have something far more valuable: the ability to see possibilities where we see only problems." The formal vote was almost unanimous. As the council welcomed humanity into the galactic community, Dr. Vex made one final note in his report. "Let this be a lesson to future generations. Never judge a species by their technology alone. And most importantly, don't mess with humans. They'll always surprise you."